JJ, 11th pick in the draft in 2006, someone who was a college star, comes into the league, scrapping and fighting for every minute possible. Year 3, you guys run into LeBron. You guys knock out the Celtics minus KG, knock out the reigning MVP, LeBron James, and face Kobe and the Lakers in the finals. What was that like, being on that stage and only your third year removed from college?
Man, some of the best memories of my career, to be honest with you. And that playoff run was really the turning point in my career, because I came out of college with a lot of confidence, and I got punched in the mouth my first 2 years. I really got punched in the mouth, and to the point where that summer between my second and third year, I had to reshape my body. I had to basically redo my sophomore to junior year back at Duke all over again. And at that point, it was about survival, and it was about sticking in the league. And I remember having conversations with my agent that summer, like, what would be options in Europe? Like, how does it work in Russia? You know what I mean? How does it work in Russia? Can I get a 3-year deal? So that playoff run, I was finally like a rotation player, but there were still some nights where I got those DNP coaches' decisions, and that playoff run, Courtney Lee broke his face in Game 5 against Philly in the first round. So I started Game 6, which was a closeout game in Philly on the road, and I hit 5 threes, played really well. Then I started the whole Boston series. I guarded Ray Allen the whole series, and then got to we beat Cleveland. I got to play against Kobe in the finals. So that to me gave me all the confidence, like I belonged in the NBA. I remember distinctly feeling in the Boston series okay, this is it. This is what I've been after for 3 years. We're in Boston, and KG was hurt, and he's fucking screaming at me the whole game, just obscenities from the bench. And I'm like, this is what I want. This is what I want.
Right.
I don't want to be all the way over there on the other bench, in a suit like I was for most of my first 2 years. So that playoff run was a life changer for me. And truthfully, we all have Kobe stories, and I have a couple more personal ones. But when I'm 80, hopefully I'm still alive. But when I'm 80, I'm going to tell my grandkids I guarded Kobe Bryant in the NBA Finals, and yes, he got the best of me. But I had some stops. Check the tape. Check the tape.
Are you counting stops when he passed the ball, or you actually stopped him?
Come on, man. Matt. Come on. Don't do that.
So the following year, you guys battle LA, fall short to LA. The next season, myself and Vince come. We have a great season. You play all 82 games. You were one of our consistent guys night in, night out. I've always kind of had a feeling of what happened, because if you remember, JJ, that's when we beat the shit out of Jack in Charlotte. We swept them and beat them by 30 a game. And although Jack had a couple games where he got some points, we just beat the shit out of his team.
Y'all ass, though. Y'all beat the shit out of us. Y'all beat the shit out of us.
Beat the brakes off them. Then we destroyed Atlanta. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we go into the Eastern Conference Finals and Stan was on some shit this is a very, veteran-driven team. We're going to have to switch a little bit of the offense up and completely fucking give our offense a facelift? Or was I just smoking too much weed back then?
Yeah, I think you've always been smoking too much weed. So, first of all, Game 4 of the Charlotte series, we're up 3-0, keep in mind. And it's the second quarter, and Jack makes a 3, and he's like, I'm still here. I'm still fucking here. Going back down the court. I'm like, man, your ass is about to get swept, man. Shut up. Jack, come on, man. You guys had no chance. All right, anyways.
He's right. You're 100% right. So you're 100% right.
That's funny as hell.
I thought 2010... truthfully was the best team that was the best team I played on in the NBA. Even though we made the finals in 2009, our 2010 team was the best team I played on in the NBA.
Loaded, man.
Most games I've won in the NBA. We had a stretch where we were 33-8 to end the season, and then we went 8-0 in the playoffs. So we're going into that Boston series on a 41-8 run, beating the shit out of people. And I think as oftentimes happen with really, really smart coaches and really detail-oriented coaches, is that they can get ahead of themselves. So it was almost like Stan adjusted before the adjustment needed to be made.
Before we had to.
Yeah.
Because then we beat them. We in the season series, we beat them 3-1, right?
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So we played well against them.
Yeah. And so it was, Tibbs was the defensive coordinator. It was all that strong side stuff, guy at the nail, weak side pulling all the way over. And Stan just felt like it wasn't in our best interest to run like a steady diet of high pick and rolls. So it wasn't that we were running like motion, but it was just more like side to side stuff. And looking back, like that's how everybody plays now, but it was like an adjustment on the fly that we had to make. And it just, I don't necessarily think that it fit all of our personnel, if that makes sense. Like for me, it was great because I was like, I don't want to get in a wrestling match with Tony Allen, in a half-court setting. But if you get me on the move and the ball's moving, okay, now I can attack a closeout and make a play.
Right.
So it was a great series for me, but I think for a lot of our guys, we hadn't played that way the whole year. So we get down 3-0, we win a couple games, and then we lose in Game 6. And, Matt, I mean, I know you ended up winning one in Golden State, but it's like, for me, I didn't realize that was going to be my, 10 years later, that was my last chance. That's my last real chance that I've had. I'm under the assumption we'll be back next year. I think we had the best team in the league this year. We'll be back next year. And then LeBron
Completely
and Chris
agreed.
Bosh and D-Wade go to Miami. And then as they're transitioning out, all of a sudden the Warriors come along. And so it's like those 2 years in Orlando where we had a legit chance to win, that was our window.
That window closed
and it was
fast.
gone.
That window, it closed fast. It closed really fast. That I always say that was one of the most talented teams. We had a legit 10 guys that were ready to go to battle, to war anytime. We were too deep at every position. Stan was one of the best X and O's coaches I ever had, but I always felt like, and I remember when Shaq would say he would panic and get nervous, and I think you put it more elegantly. Obviously, I think he overthought the situation. We were adjusting before we even got into the situation. You know what I mean? We had success against them in the regular season, and we overthought our situation. And the
one thing I would say though, Stan, there's no perfect coach. I think Stan probably had a bigger impact on my career than any coach I've played for. Doc as well, because Doc was the first coach who let me be, who looked at me as a starter and gave me more of a role in an offense. But Stan, probably the best coach that I've played for in the NBA, and I hate that Shaq had to say that about him, or, that we have to sit here and talk about this, because I always felt like in a playoff series, I felt like Stan was going to get us a win. Like he was going
super smart.
He was going to make an adjustment or come up with a game plan in Game 3 or Game 4, or even steal one in Game 1. Like I'm gonna do this, and they're not expecting it. And it worked a lot of the time. And he would always get us a game just because he was so prepared and he worked so hard. He took such responsibility on what he could control. And he was great for that.
His attention to detail, I've second to none as far as coaches. He was, only thing I didn't like about Stan was our fucking tape shoot-arounds with knee pads. I'm like, damn, Stan, we can't cruise. Like, we have real, we were taped with knee pads and shoot-around. It was unbelievable.
Hey, JJ, what was Matt like as a teammate?
I mean, Matt's just the same guy I'm talking to right now. This is what I was talking earlier about, reputation. Like when people ask me, who are the best teammates you've had in your career? I'm like, well, Matt Barnes is definitely one of them. He was a great teammate. I think, I saw this in Orlando, but it was a different group. When I got to LA, the way that him and DJ brought everybody together, if you were the 15th guy on that team, you felt like you were part of that team. There was no status on the team playing or status in the locker room. They just had an amazing way of making every guy on that team feel special. And that was, that's rare, man. That just doesn't happen a ton in the NBA. And truthfully, that was a lesson that I learned. And I've taken that with me now as I've gotten older and I've done the mentor thing. It's important to just involve everybody because we get so caught up throughout a season, about what's going on with me. What's going on with me? I'm playing well. I'm playing bad. Whatever. And you got to keep in mind, like there's 3 or 4 guys every night that leave that arena pissed.
Yeah.
Pissed because they didn't play, or they were in a suit, or they got their run in the first half but didn't get their run in the second half. And so, doing the check-in with those guys, man, is important. And I think DJ and Matt were always great about that.